I love traveling and staying in unique places, like an old building or home that had been turned into a bed and breakfast or an inn. There was this one trip I was taking in October for work and found one such inn online that was along the path to my destination. It was originally built back in the 1840s for the town's richest person, who also happened to be the town's only doctor. He was well liked and well respected by the townspeople. I was stunned as I pulled into the driveway to see it was lined with large old oak trees on either side. My jaw dropped when the gorgeous plantation style home came into view. As I got out of the car, I looked around at the of the house. I was in awe of how beautiful it all was. I took out my camera and started taking several pictures of the grounds and home to show my family and friends back home. After several minutes, I went ahead and grabbed my stuff from the car. I walked up the stairs onto the wraparound porch and through the front doors to see how stunning it was inside as well. I felt like I was being taken back in time. There was just so much to see as I put my bag down just inside the main hall. An older woman came over, introducing herself to me, and helped me check in. She told me that they were serving dinner at 7 p.m., and they would also tell us about the history of the house. As I grabbed my bag, we headed up the stairs to my room, which was at the top of the staircase. I thanked her and went inside my room to relax a little. My room was just as beautiful as the rest of the house. I had a four-post bed, a chair, and a desk that looks like it would have been from the same period as the house. I also had my own private bathroom with a clawfoot tub and a shower head attached. Since there was still a while before dinner, I decided to jump into the shower. I put my suitcase on the bed and took out a change of clothes and laid them on the bed. About 15 minutes later, after I was done in the bathroom, I went to grab my change of clothes when I saw that both them and my suitcase weren't there. I looked around and found my suitcase by the door with the clothes back inside of it. This confused me a bit, but I just thought maybe I was just so tired from the long drive I just hadn't put it on the bed like I thought. So I grabbed the suitcase, put it on the bed, grabbed the outfit from the suitcase and put it on. When the time came, I headed down for dinner 15 minutes early and started talking with the other guests. There was one couple from Arizona and then another couple with a young 13-year-old son from North Carolina. We were talking about how beautiful the house and the grounds were. I found out that it was also their first time here at the house. About that time, the woman who had checked us in let us know it was dinner time. She guided us into the dining room off the left side of the main hall, where we all took our seats at the beautiful dining table. At this time, she brought our attention to the portrait above the fireplace in the room. She said that it was the original owner, Dr. Sean O'Reilly, and his family. We sat there listening to her tell us the history of the house as we ate our food. Then her story started taking a twist that we weren't expecting. Apparently, the doctor, who never missed a day of work, never showed up for his shift. So the hospital where he worked had someone come to his house to check up on him. When they got to the house, they found the front door unlocked and slightly opening. As they slowly pushed open the door, they called out the doctor's name. There was no answer after calling him a few times. He took a few steps into the house, hearing how eerily quiet it was inside. The guy walked further into the home, looking into the living room off to the right, and found a brutal scene. Both the doctor and his family were murdered, lying on the floor with blood everywhere. The guy ran out of the house, feeling sick from seeing the scene. A neighbor who happened to be outside saw the guy come rushing out of the house and ran over to see what was going on. The guy had trouble getting his words out from being so sick. That's when the neighbor started towards the front door when the guy grabbed his arm, stopping him, telling him he doesn't want to see the horrible scene. After hearing that, they both took off to go tell the police what had happened. For weeks, the police had gone through the crime scene the best they could in those days. They had interviewed the neighbors and everyone who worked with the doctor. Everyone said the same thing, that they didn't know who would do such a thing since they were well loved. A few people did say that the day before there was someone who did come to the hospital that they didn't know, asking for the doctor by name. Those who saw the gentleman said he was soft-spoken and well-dressed. The doctor seemed to know who the gentleman was. The two were seen walking out the front door of the hospital, talking in low voices. That was the last time the doctor was seen alive, and no one in the hospital saw the gentleman again. Though the next few years the police tried tracking down the mysterious man that the people saw, but it was like he disappeared into thin air. Back then, there was no such thing as DNA like we do now, so they couldn't look for fingerprints or blood samples. The case had gone cold and unsolved. Over the years, people have said that they have had experiences they couldn't explain. From things being moved, to hearing footsteps, and to even hearing the piano being played when no one was near it. Some have even heard someone whispering near them when they were alone. Hearing the host say this made me think of my own experience with my suitcase and wondered if it was related to what she was saying. Some guests throughout the years have tried to solve the case, but none were successful. It was no wonder, with so few clues and no DNA to test. She even said that a local ghost hunter team of all men had came in and stayed the night with their equipment. They weren't disappointed. After a few days, they came back with a few personal stories along with some EVPs. The host played the EVPs for us to listen to. They had caught what sounded like a child giggling, and then one that sounded like a man saying, "Help us." And then there was one low growl that sent shivers down our backs. But the one that tore at my heart was the one that sounded like a blood curdling scream of a woman in pain. The room went silent after hearing that last one for several moments. As if on cue, the fire in the fireplace popped, causing all of us, including the host, to jump. One of the guests let out a scream before we all started laughing as we realized what we'd just heard. At this point, we all stood up, chatting among each other about the fireplace and, of course, the murder mystery of the doctor. I overheard the younger couple mention that when they had arrived earlier that their stuff was moved several times. That is when I brought up my experience of my suitcase and clothes. The 13-year-old boy spoke up saying he thought he was going nuts. He said that while his parents were downstairs, he had put his handheld game on the bed while he went to the bathroom. When he came back out, it had been moved to the other side of the room on the dresser. By this time, it was about 8:30, and we all went our separate ways. I had planned on doing some work before heading to bed and didn't want to be up too late with having a long drive ahead of me the following day. About 45 minutes into my work, I heard a knock on the bedroom door. Thinking it was just the host, I got up and answered the door to an empty hallway. I took a few steps into the hallway, looking down the staircase right outside my door to see if I saw anyone. No one was there and all was quiet. I went back into my room, thinking it was probably just the doctor or one of the other ghosts playing a trick on me. I went back to work, and moments later, I heard someone whisper in my ear, "Get out!" I turned so fast, seeing no one in the room with me. Suddenly, I felt the air go cold and the uneasy presence of something evil, almost like I wasn't welcome in that room. That's when I heard the footsteps heading towards the door. My heart was still pounding in my ear from the voice I had heard when I saw the bedroom door open and slam shut. I was frozen with fear in my chair. After several moments, I stood up, walking towards the door, seeing the guests in the hallway. Everyone was asking the others if they had heard a door slam. I spoke up, letting them know what I had just experienced. They started asking if I was okay, and I told them I was, just a bit shaken up from the experience. I was a little scared to go back into my room, especially to sleep alone. Since I was too tired to drive anywhere, I knew I had to go back in there and try to get some sleep. Wasn't sure how much sleep I was going to be getting that night, though. As I was laying in bed, my mind kept going back to what I had heard earlier. Every so often, I would hear noises from footsteps to what sounded like a woman whispering, but I could not make out what she was being said. I was trying to come up with some explanation for everything that was happening to me. but couldn't. About 30 minutes later, I finally fell asleep from being so exhausted. The next morning, I was up early and was ready to go by 8 a.m. When I headed downstairs with my bag to check out, the host offered me some breakfast before I got on the road. I thanked her and ate some eggs, bacon, and pancakes with locally made syrup. Since I didn't get much sleep, I also had 3 cups of coffee with breakfast to help wake me up. I had mentioned what I had experienced to the host, letting her know, and she didn't look surprised. She told me that out of the 30 years of her working there, I wasn't the first person who had told her about the experience. When I was done, I thanked her again for the great food and grabbed my suitcase and putting it into my car. I took one last glance up at the grand old home, seeing somebody in the window that was my room. It looked to be the woman from the portrait. Stood there in awe, scared to death, seeing her disappear in front of my eyes. I quickly got into my car and took off. After I left, I called my best friend, telling them what happened to me that night. He believed me, but when I was telling my story to other people, they thought I had a wild imagination or I was just really tired. I knew I would never go back to that inn alone.